So we've talked about Target, we've talked about Bud Light, but now the next company on the docket, they just can't stop doing it, they never learn, is Kohl's. So the company Kohl's is now busted because they've been selling these pride onesies. And look, I think we get it. This is disgusting. They're pushing it on your children. We know the whole song and dance by this point. Obviously, to the best of your ability, we ought to add Kohl's to the boycott list. But the thing I want to talk about tonight, and, you know, it's just as shameful as Ted Cruz, as we talked about in the beginning, I don't understand this. And listen, this has to be called out because we as conservatives, for once, are actually starting to be effective, right? We said go broke, go woke. No, go woke, go broke, same thing for so many years, and it never actually meant anything. And now we as conservatives are starting to cause massive bankruptcies at companies. We're starting to, you know, really actually push back and do something and fight the culture war. And somehow kicking and screaming, there are principled conservatives, quote unquote, that's what they call themselves so often, who take issue with this, okay? So we have this interview, so we have this article here from the National Review, who, you know, look, I still hope the best for the National Review. They're the oldest conservative, basically, magazine out there. But repeatedly, I just see things from them that frequently disappoint. And it's like, do you get it or do you not? Are you on our side or are you not? Well, here you go. New article from the National Review that says sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. But before we continue with that, we need to talk today about your retirement because, folks, I think we all can observe the current state of the economy. We know this country is on the verge of recession, and in times like these, it is very difficult to rely on traditional currency. It is difficult to rely on traditional stock portfolios, IRAs, and retirement accounts, which is why you need to be protected with our friends today over at Noble Gold Investments. Protect your retirement with our friends. Essentially, what Noble Gold Investments offers are gold and precious metal IRAs, right? These are retirement accounts, but instead of being backed to stocks or whatever else, they are backed by the price of gold. Why is that a good investment? Why is that a good idea? Because when, you know, the currency goes up in flames, what do human beings resort to historically? Gold, silver, your precious metals, right? They generally retain value throughout human history. There's a reason why whenever human civilization defaults back to its natural state, gold and silver coins become the original currency. So be sure to go check them out, okay? Protect your retirement again with a gold or precious metals IRA with our friends at Noble Gold over at thevincedao.gold.com. Again, that is thevincedao.gold.com. Do not wait for everything to go up in flames and then wish you had done it, right? Protect your retirement, gold and precious metals IRAs at thevincedao.gold.com. All right, back to the video. So we have the National Review, again, the oldest conservative newspaper in the country, and the ones that are always talking about Donald Blump is not a real conservative and blah, blah, blah. We're the principled conservatives. We really support the real Reagan Revolution. And all you guys forgot, even though, you know, as much as they want to idolize the ghost of Ronald Reagan, to Ronald Reagan's credit, you know, he never would have supported this stuff. Ask Ronald Reagan what he thought about LGBT. I think he'd tell you the answer. But still, regardless, okay. Sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. No, National Review. Actually, I think it's quite disgusting that they're pushing this agenda of blank YouTube you-know-what on not just little kids, on newborn babies, okay? I don't think sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. Okay, National Review, let me ask you a question then. So if there were a hammer and sickle, okay? If there's literally a communist onesie, would you say is a onesie just a onesie, okay? Or, you know, let's be honest. The person who wrote this, if the person who wrote this saw like a swastika on the onesie, would he write an article saying sometimes a onesie is just a onesie? No, but apparently in the case of promoting LGBTQIA ABCDEFG plus on children, now a onesie is just a onesie. So let's read through this article here and give you the idea. Phillip Klein, or How I Became the Villain in the Culture War. Yeah, rightfully so. But anyways, he says, on the morning of Memorial Day, I glanced at Twitter and noticed some uproar over photos of a pride display at Kohl's that featured a themed onesie. Given everything else going on in this world, I didn't particularly view it as something worth getting into a tizzy about, which is a very I've never heard a man, for the record, I've never heard a man in my life use the term tizzy. Yeah, no wonder you're writing this article. I didn't think I should be getting in a tizzy about it. That's what I hear. Okay, that's what's being communicated. But anyways, he says, I sent out this tweet and got on with my day. I don't have a problem with this. If somebody wants to dress their baby in a pride onesie, why should it matter? We're not talking about transitioning minors here. It's just a shirt. Really? Well, what does the shirt represent, Phillip Klein? Huh? And you don't think that someone who puts their baby in these clothes is not going to transition their minors or would not be totally down for that? Let's be totally real. Okay, but he says, oh, well, who cares? Who cares? You're just putting it on a minor, which I'm going to respond to in a second, but I want to read more of this article first. So we continue here. It didn't take long for the tweet, blah, blah, blah. Some conservative critics lashed out by branding me a groomer, liking the pride onesie to a swastika and me a Nazi. Okay. But beyond the taunting, there were those who made an actual argument. It's not taunting, by the way, though. This right here, it is grooming, right? This onesie is grooming. You're trying to basically assert on literal babies that this is the lifestyle that they should pursue, which any conservative should disagree with because it's not a conservative lifestyle, right? And let me say, just to answer the question as to what's the big deal, what's the issue with it? Well, the issue with pushing any of these rainbow flag ideas on little kids, I'll tell you why. Because people will say, whoa, don't straight people push blah, blah, blah on little kids? Okay, whatever it is. Well, A, first of all, I think you shouldn't push sexuality to begin with. But B, in terms of like non-sexual human attraction, and by the way, I'm speaking to the National Review here, so I think any conservative should believe this. It is the normative state of existence to be heterosexual. Okay, do you understand this, right? We understand that in order for society and the human race and civilization to proliferate, you need people to be heterosexual, right? The primary function ultimately biologically and naturally of sex is the reproduction of the human species, right? We understand this? Okay. So as a conservative, especially, whether we want to disagree and debate about should Uganda be doing blah, 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 this and that. The pure fact of the matter is you should not actively want for anyone to grow up, quote unquote, to be any of that type of stuff, right? Any of the rainbow spectrum, whatever. Because as conservatives, because we recognize, right, that the natural function of sex is the production of children, and we should ultimately want to have children so that they can have children, so that they can extend a genetic legacy, right? We should actively want for our kids to be straight. Is that a hot take? I don't think it should be, right? I will say it on the record. Vince Dow absolutely wants his sons and daughters to grow up to be heterosexual. Okay, it shouldn't be difficult to understand. We understand this, right? If you want grandchildren, if you want your kids to extend the human species, your kids naturally would need to be straight. Now, with that said, it's also important to understand and to point out that despite all of the talk about how being gay is genetic, that is not scientifically proven whatsoever, right? In fact, despite decades of searching, there has been identified no gay gene. Okay, we've done this whole song and dance before. Find me the gay gene. There is no gay gene. It's not true. There is a degree to which prenatal hormone exposure can have an effect, absolutely. But the bottom line is there is a very large degree of rainbow spectrum stuff that is environmental, right? That is environmental. Nature versus nurture. We know that there's a high degree of this that is nurture, and that's a big reason why, statistically speaking, just as a matter of statistics, right, there tends to be a very high correlation between rainbow flag spectrum, identifications and childhood trauma, right? Childhood trauma. Why? Because there's a high degree of this, which is, again, nurture-based, right? Environmentally based. So with that said, if we can, establish that we should actively want for people to be straight because, human existence, right? That's kind of the necessary state of existence needed to perpetuate the human species. If we understand that and we combine that with the understanding that B, it is not genetic, quote unquote, there's a high degree of nurture that goes into it, then therein lies the answer as to why we should not encourage any of this stuff on little kids. We should not promote these themes to little kids, because we should not want for kids to grow up to be on the rainbow flag spectrum. And I don't think this should be difficult to understand or explain to a conservative. It should make sense to people. I hope it does make sense to people, right? And so that's the reason why I say you should not, besides other reasons, that's the reason why I'm like, you should not push any form of rainbow flag or promote any of that stuff to little kids. I don't care if it's sexual or not. Because unlike heterosexuality, it's not what we should be encouraging on people. It's not what we should be wanting for people, okay? Now, the people who turn out like that, well, then we can have that discussion, because, yes, it happens, but we should not encourage it. We should not want it in the same sense. We should not want people to have other mental disorders or whatever it is, right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. And that's the reason why it shouldn't be pushed on little kids, but we continue here. But beyond the taunting, those who made an actual argument said that I was being naive by viewing the piece of clothing in a vacuum rather than as a part of a broader effort by the cultural left to impose its agenda on kids from the moment they leave the womb. Yeah, 100%. What do you mean? What do you mean? They were accusing me. Yeah, that's 100% correct, Phillip Klein, Mr. Tizzy. True. Yes, your critics are 100% correct. But we continue on here. Ben Shapiro summed up that view by writing, "Indoctrinating children into sexual fluidity is extraordinarily destructive, and yes, it is the predicate philosophy for transitioning minors." W take, very well put by Ben Shapiro. He's absolutely right. That is 100% the case. That's what I just said. And by the way, that's why you wonder why so much of Gen Z identifies as LGBT, quote unquote, right? You wonder why it's like historically high as compared to past generations. I know they very often say, no, it's just because the social environment. No. Listen, there is obviously a high degree of which that the culture and trends around this stuff cause more people to either think they identify that way or even in a genuine sense, arguably turn out that way. And I think you could also say that hormones and the stuff in the food and water, maybe that plays a degree of it too, especially in men. But yeah, absolutely. All of this stuff is increasing the rates of LGBT identifications in children. And again, for the reasons we identified, that should not be what we want, right? But anyways, we continue here. This argument doesn't make much sense. Why does it not make much sense? All right. The reason I agree with efforts to stop public schools from pushing lessons about sexuality and gender as young as kindergartners is that the gender ideology curriculum is a case of one side imposing its values on another. Yeah, that's the problem with it, right? The problem with gender ideology is not the fact that it's like satanic and twisted and evil. The problem is, I think we're imposing our views on others. I think that, they shouldn't be doing that. Come on, dude. Seriously. Okay, it forces conversations of complex and sensitive topics on parents who may prefer to discuss these topics at a time and manner of their own choosing. Okay, again, let me kind of reemphasize this. I can't believe we have to do this. Okay. Yes, to a degree that is true, right? Many of these topics, especially regarding sex, should be things that are left to parents. However, that is not the primary thing wrong with teaching children gender ideology. The primary thing wrong is that gender ideology in itself is wrong. That's the reason why, right? That's the reason why. Because men cannot become women, because any of the rainbow flag spectrum identifications are not the normative state of human existence, and they should not be encouraged, right? We should not actively encourage or want for people to do those things. That's the reason why gender ideology is bad. So you're just straight up wrong there. It's not because I think the parents should have to be able to explain transgenderism to their kids. No, sure, I guess, but most fundamentally, the problem with it is, again, it in itself is wrong and incorrect. That's the reason. But anyways, it says, in contrast, the existence of pride onesies does not impose anything on parents who choose not to dress their children in them. Oh my gosh. And practically speaking, any child who grows up in the type of household that would want to dress their baby in a pride onesie is likely already going to be exposed to progressive messaging on sexuality and gender ideology at home. Okay, listen. Sorry, I'm getting like hiccups here. Listen, I understand all of that. I get all of that. But again, why is he even writing this article? I have to say that. There's so many of these DC National Review types that I swear they always just want to hear themselves talk. Because, like, what are you actually saying then? What are you actually even trying to get at here? You know? Oh, well, it doesn't impose anything on them. But, okay, here's the thing, okay? All right, Mr. Conservative, you're so about free market. Hey, free market, free choice, all that stuff. Okay, then you know what? We as conservatives then, according to your philosophy, also have the right to say we don't like Kohls and we're going to boycott Kohls, Mr. Phillip Klein. So why are you even writing this article? Why are you even going out there and trying to explain any of this? It's just so silly. Oh, well, you know, okay. You know, if you want to use that excuse, then I use the excuse of I'm a conservative, I have the right. But anyways, we continue on here. I certainly understand expressing a general displeasure at parents using their children to promote their own political views. But given that there is a market for conservative-themed clothes, it's fair to say that the blowback at Kohls had more to do with the underlying message. What a stupid article. What an unbelievably stupid article. Hey guys, Vince Dao here. Hope you enjoyed that clip from the Vince Dao Show. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And be sure to check out the Vince Dao Show live every weeknight here on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a great show. Many are saying this. So leave a like, check out our other clips, and be sure to check out the show. Yeah, God bless.